This build is a very specific project aimed at replacing the manufactured legs on my school Clavanova. So here is the Clavanova with the final project installed. This just gives you a little glimpse at what I will be building. So let's go to the shop and start putting this together. So I have two 1x12s here, and then a 1x2, a 1x3, and several 1x4s. And they are going to become two new legs to the Clavanova that I have at school. Right now we have a 20-year-old Clavanova that kind of shakes back and forth, and I also wanted to incorporate a little shelf on each side for some of the books that I use the most in class. The most important reason I'm doing this, however, is I wanted to add some casters to the bottom of the instrument. I and my cooperating teacher like to move the Clavanova out into the hallway sometimes to work with smaller groups, and the Clavanova probably weighs around 80 pounds or so, so you gotta get a couple people to move it. So I just took some measurements of the existing legs on the piano, and I'm just going to play this project by ear. I'm not even going to draw out plans, it's just all in my mind. The 1x2 and 1x3 are 8 feet long, so I'm going to cut them in half so they are each 48 inches long, and I'm going to end up making kind of a box out of them, and it's going to end up being the stretcher that goes in between the legs. So now you can see what I mean by a box. And of course it is hollow at the moment, and I'm not going to fill it all in, but I'm going to use this piece of scrap wood, which I believe probably came from a pallet. I'm going to clean it up and make it fit this opening exactly. So after taking it off the table saw, I put it on the jointer and the planer, and I cut it into 3 sections, and they're kind of interspersed along the board. And that will give me an area to screw into from the legs. And I also will need an area to be able to screw into from below, which will hold the pedals to the piano. So now all I have to do is glue this up. I'm not going to use any fasteners on this. I think the glue will be enough. So I clamped it to the workbench to hold it down nice and tight. And the glue should be dried now. Here it is with the clamps off, and probably hard to see here, but the boards are not exactly flush with each other. And that, of course, is why I'm going to take it over to the jointer. I've cut several of the 1x4s into sections that are 17.5 inches long. And when I put these together, 6 of these boards at a time, this will become the foot. And there will be, a wheel on both sides. But I'm going to recess this deep into the wood. So I'm going to glue this board up first, and then I'm going to go to my drill press and drill out an area so that this wheel can completely swivel around without being seen. So while the glue is drying, I'm going to be cutting the 1x12s that are going to make up the legs. So there's going to be 2 1x12s for each leg, and they'll also be forming a shelf. And here's the glue up of all 6 boards together, which are going to make the foot. So now I'm going to run them through the jointer and then the planer, and then I can cut them to length. I've attached the block to the drill press, and I have a stop here so that all the blocks will end up at the same place. I have my largest Forstner bit in, which is 2 1/4, and I have it on pretty much the slowest speed that the drill press can go. And I'm going to be going all the way down to about 1 1.25 inches, going in way deep. So hopefully you can see that I have 2 different levels here. This is where the plate for the wheel is going to be screwed in, so it doesn't need to go quite as far down where the wheel is rotating. So here is where I'm at right now. I've got this giant hole in here, but the wheel still hits these little corners, and it's just going to take way too long trying to make all the adjustments necessary. So at this point, I'm going to try to come in with a chisel and knock off those corners, and then we should be good. So far, so good. This does not have to look good inside because nobody's ever going to see this. Once this is installed, it's never going to be turned over again. It's probably pretty good. I guess I should see how this works now. Empty out all of that. Pretty good. I have a little clearance issue here. Afraid of splitting it though. I think a narrower chisel might help. I've put a stop block on the miter saw here, and I'm going to be cutting 45-degree angles on the feet, just so I'm not tripping over them and hurting myself. The upright panel of the leg is going to attach to the outside of the feet here. So what I've done is I have marked the width of that board right here and here.
I want to put a round over on the entire bottom of the foot, and then I want to put a round over just on the ends on the top. I don't want to round over where it goes behind the leg.
I made the groove about a ½ inch deeper than necessary. So now I'm going to cut off the tail end, and that allows me to get rid of the end that had a little bit of chip out, so it'll fit nice and flush against the feet. So I'm just going to run these straight across. And now I'm going to cut the boards to the exact length to the top of the Clavanova. I've temporarily clamped these boards together so that I can get the inside measurement between these boards, because what I want to do is get this board to fit right in between, and that measurement happens to be 3¼ inches exactly. So I'm going to rip down several boards to that width, because I'm going to need a board that runs up and down all the way, which will connect those two legs and make it nice and strong. I need the board I just showed you to become the top to this. Here is the outer side panel. I have rounded over most of the edges. And on the inside, I have glued 2 boards to the top already. Now this should have been one solid board, but I didn't have quite the length I needed, but this will not show, so I'm not worried about that. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue a board to the side here, board up against that, a board here, and then a board there. So I'm going to glue all of that up right now, and then I will add the other side on top of this. So now I have them glued up, just waiting for them to dry. In the meantime, I'm going to start building some brackets which will enable this bar to be attached to the lower part of the legs. I'm going to make those brackets out of this scrap pine that I have here. This is just cut-offs from a project that did not go too well. So I'm going to put them through the planer and just barely take off a little bit of the wood, because they have cupped just a little. You can barely see it, but I'm going to be stacking these together, and they obviously have to lie flat. Okay, much better now. So now I'm going to take these boards and I'm going to glue them into 2 giant blocks, which I'm then going to cut into shape. I now have 2 blocks. They'll be sitting down like this, and I'm going to be cutting out kind of a diagonal, but the most important feature is that I'm going to be putting a dado right down the middle of the block so that the center beam support will be able to sit right in between that. So to do that, I'm going to start in the center, and then I'm going to be moving the fence back in small increments and flipping the workpiece around each time. So I'm removing even amount of material on each side until I get to, I think, about 1½.
It was at this point that I realized something wasn't quite right with my measurements. Apparently I had measured from the edge of the bit rather than the center of the bit, so things were a little bit off. But fortunately I hadn't cut enough of the wood yet, so it didn't really matter. So I went back to finding the measurement from the center of the bit, and now I have a perfectly centered slot.
I don't know exactly how long the stretcher is going to be, which is why I can't attach these yet. But this is actually the bottom. So I'm going to put some screws that go into this, but I'm not going to do that yet because, as I say, I don't know how long it is. And I have another block on the other side. So now all I'm going to do is shape these blocks so that they're a little bit more appealing. So I'm going to cut off the corners and do some roundovers. I just used the chop saw to cut these into a little bit prettier shape, and now I'm going to round over the top with a 3/8 inch roundover bit.
This is about the halfway point of this project, so I'll put the rest of it in the next video. If you're enjoying this, please hit the like button, and if you have not already, please subscribe. Thank you.